Hi. So now let's look into the different forecasting techniques that are available. So one is the first one is the quantitative technique. So let's look into it. So if a demand for your product is highly stable and predictable, the forecast consists of past sales and inflation to predict future sales. In formula form, it is simply parcels plus percentage of inflation factor is equal to your sales forecast. In the event that monthly variations over a period of years have been small, another method of forecasting can be based on the distribution of sales by months. So let's there are two ways of calculation that we can possibly see over here. One is called the monthly forecast and the other is called the annual forecast. So let's look into it. So as you see over here, there are two sheets. One is monthly forecast and the other one is annual forecast. So let's look into the monthly forecast system first. So as you see, the color which is lighter, I should say, I don't know the exact name of the color. So it's like it's pinkish sort of color. So these are the input cells. So these are the input cells, and the one which is like yellowish in color is called the calculated cells, right? So these are the calculated cells. So suppose for instance that there is a short term that a short term forecast is being made for the month of October. For the past several years, sales in October have totaled 12.5% of annual sales. That's an average that has happened. During the same period, August sales have averaged 10% of annual sales. So sales during the previous August was INR 16,000, say. Okay. So if we divide the 16,000 by this 10%, so INR 1,60,000 is the estimated annual sales, right? Because it is the 16,000 is average 10% of the annual sales. So then we can say the estimated annual sales is roughly around 1,60,000. Now projected sales for October will be 12.5% as per the past trend of INR 1,60,000. That is roughly around 20,000, right? So if we see in this sort of a calculation, so like if you enter your last month's sales, there's 16,000 over here, and the percentage which we mentioned over here is 10%, then you get your annual estimated sales, which is 1,60,000. And if that gets to be 12.5% of the annual sales, then that is 20,000. So this 12.5% is basis the estimation on the trend that has come up over the years, because maybe at that point of time in that month of October, there is there may be some sort of a festival or something like that, for which the sales is roughly 2.5% higher than the August time period. And this August, in August we get to see that the sales is 10% of the annual sales, right? So which is and if the sales is 16,000 in the month of August, then we can roughly say that the estimated annual sales is roughly around 1,60,000. So this is a very I should say a very quick method of understanding what would be sales that may happen in the coming months, based on, obviously you should have a trend pattern coming up in the past years, and then only you can take the help of that to really undertake this calculation. Now sales forecasting, obviously you cannot be a master of sales forecast in the very first year. As you understand, any type of forecasting that is done is basis the experience that is gathered in the past years. So those data points or data elements gets to be very important from a calculation perspective, both on a financial terms, or if you're using statistical terms also, that gets to be those data elements gets to be very significant. Now let us look into, say, an annual forecast. So suppose last year's sales is roughly around over here we say we take 10 lakhs. Okay, so total value of additional contracts you expect to land during the next year, right? Say 1 lakh. Okay, so last year's sales has been 10 lakh and total additional value of contracts that may possibly happen is 1 lakh. So total value of contracts that will not be renewed during the year, um, say we are very optimistic and all would be renewed, so there is no question of nothing getting renewed. So if it doesn't, there's an element out here as you see over here in the formula, it would get deducted. So the projected sales for the year would be 11 lakhs, right? So now the percentage increase or decrease projected by experts for industry's growth is say 10%. We keep on getting to see that in the industry, roughly the growth would be of around about 10%, 5%, 8%. So see, so we take over here roughly 10% would be the industry growth. So then the current year sales forecast that should ideally be generated is like this 10% of this 11 lakhs, right? So it comes up to roughly 12 lakh 10,000, right? So this is just to give you a sense as to how forecasting uh, uh, activity is done on a monthly basis and an annual basis, and this is very handy and we have practically used it, so you may take reference of that if you require. So now let us look into the other aspects or the other methods of forecasting. The other one is called the qualitative or the judgmental method. Sorry. So it's common when sufficient historical data is not available. So in cases where it's a new business or less established market environment, so there one has to really fall back on a qualitative or a judgmental basis. One has to do a certain level of forecasting. In certain cases, both quantitative and qualitative aspects are taken into account to undertake a proper forecasting exercise, which is called the mix of both. So, why projected and actual sales may not match? There are many reasons for that. So, few of them are like uncontrollable external factors. Suddenly, something sets in which we are not expecting, and that may make this as the difference coming up, or like it may be in case of say sudden employee turnover or some technical challenges has set in. So these are situations which may lead to the fact where projected and actual sales may not match. Now, how sales forecasting applies to a new business, let's look into it. So what are the factors one has to keep into consideration in the case of a new business? So, how will your competition satisfy the need of its potential customers? So, when I say so, uh, it ideally means from the perspective of the customer volume, the location, hours of operation, traffic patterns, busy periods, quality of goods and services, prices, product lines carried, promotional techniques, positioning, product catalogs, etc. So these all factors are very important, and these factors are has to be taken into consideration while one is trying to understand the competitive space, right? So how will your competition satisfy the need of its potential customers from all this perspective, and how you are placed vis-a-vis that is something that has to be really taken into account while undertaking a sales forecasting exercise. Then you have to note the population and economic growth in that location. You have to develop a customer profile, identify your primary markets, determine trends in that industry, know the approximate size and location of your planned business area. Your business area is how far your average customer is ready to travel to shop, also how far you are ready to distribute and promote your product or service, and also it's important to know the personality of the area by contacting business owners, chamber of commerce, etc. So these are few of the aspects which one has to take into account while undertaking a sales forecasting exercise in case of a new business, right? Now, how to produce a sales forecast, that suppose you are an employee and or you are an employer, and so you or your staff, or you may be an employee who's when you are suppose entrusted with the responsibility of creating a sales forecast, it's very important that you have to take everyone across the board into consideration, right? And you have, they all have to align to what you are trying to place across. So how essentially you can go about doing that? So though for sales forecasting may seem number driven, to succeed it needs to be people driven as well. That's what I was trying to focus into. People in your business need to feel part of achieving the sales forecast, and also action plan for achieving forecasting buy-in from your staff, right? So share your expectations, right? So salespeople need to know the annual sales growth rate that you are looking for. Information and communication are key ingredients in securing an accurate sales forecast. It also creates a feeling of personal responsibility for the results. So ask the right questions and insist on the real answers. The real answers will contain evidence to support the numbers. Evidence means hard facts, not merely hunches about what will directly affect your customers and their future purchasing decisions. Insist that everyone in your organization do their homework and talk to customers on a regular basis, right? Make sure your salespeople understand that a sales forecast is for everyone's benefit. Personalize the numbers by showing how the success of your company is tied to the success of its employees. Also point out exactly how each department's role fits into the bottom line, right? So ensure accuracy in the sales forecast. This is also very critical. Employees should feel confident that solid projections will ensure the safety of their jobs, right? And get a second opinion. Have the forecast checked by a professional. Show them the factors you have considered and explain why you think the figures are realistic. So these are very critical. The staff buy-in, the people buy-in around is very important during this sales forecasting exercise, right? So I think we have discussed enough in this video. By this time there are quite a number of things that has been discussed, so I would ideally like you to just again look through the video and assimilate what has been discussed, so that going forward you can really implement the aspects which have been discussed, and we'll consider the next parts which are left out in the next video. Thanks a lot.